Today I want to discuss on a very important concept, that is the difference between osteomalacia and osteoporosis, and the difference between osteoporosis with osteopenia, and the differences with osteopenia between osteopenia and osteomalacia, because all these terminologies are often confused with each other. So let's start first with the term osteomalacia. Osteomalacia basically means a state where the bone is undermineralized. The mineral component of the bone is inadequate. And this is typically seen in vitamin D deficiency or abnormalities related with the vitamin D metabolism. So in osteomalacia, the chemical composition of the bone is changed or altered, the mineral component. On the other side, in both osteopenia and osteoporosis, the chemical composition of the bone remains unchanged. The basic problem in both osteopenia and osteoporosis is decreased bone mass, but there's no problem or defect in the mineralization part. So you can easily separate osteomalacia from osteopenia and osteoporosis. Now let's concentrate on these two terms, osteopenia and osteoporosis. First, start with osteopenia. Whenever you get a term in medicine which ends with penia, it means decrease or lack or poverty of that, because Penia was Greek goddess of poverty. So wherever you get penia as a suffix, it's ending with penia, it means lack of that, like leukopenia, decrease of or lack of WBCs. Thrombocytopenia, decrease or lack of thrombocytes or platelets. Similarly, osteopenia means lack of bone mass. But that lack of bone mass in osteopenia is not as severe as osteoporosis. So you can say in this way that osteopenia is basically a milder version of osteoporosis. Or in other words, osteoporosis is an extreme version of osteopenia, which is associated with complications like fractures. And typical osteoporosis, they're associated with fractures of the vertebra of the hip and the wrist fracture. And that also, these fractures, particularly the hip fractures, could have a lot of complications like pulmonary embolism, infections could lead to death. Those things are usually not seen in osteopenia because it's a milder version. And if you want to quantify actually that what is the extent of the loss of bone mass, usually the osteopenia, the decrease in bone mass is between -1 to minus up to 2.4, 2.5 actually standard deviation, compared to a middle age youth's bone mass, the average peak bone mass. But in osteoporosis, the loss of bone mass is much more severe. It is even more, that is even below than 2.5 standard deviation. So the basic idea is this, that osteopenia usually would be not associated with complications unlike osteoporosis. Now, osteoporosis is basically a major metabolic bone disorder. It's a global problem, we know, and millions of people are affected by that. Roughly, they say that each 3 seconds, one person is acquiring osteoporotic fracture. And osteoporosis is usually we get in primary form and secondary form. And primary, there are two major forms. One is called postmenopausal osteoporosis, another is called senile osteoporosis. Postmenopausal osteoporosis usually occurs in females after they hit the menopause. Is associated with hormonal deficiency, particularly as the effect of estrogen fades away after menopause, then the protective effect of estrogen also goes away, and that causes activation of more number of osteoclasts. Osteoclasts are the cells which actually likes to chew or eat the bone. So that results in excessive loss of bone mass in postmenopausal females. On the other side, there is another type of primary osteoporosis is seen, that is called senile osteoporosis or aging associated osteoporosis, typically seen after 75 years of age. The cause here is this, that the loss of function of the osteoblast. You know that there are two kind of cells there in the bone. One is called osteoclast, another is called osteoblast. Osteoclast means that those cells which actually chews the bone, eats the bone, and osteoblast means those which synthesize the bone, lay down the bone. And now there is a balance actually there between the function of the osteoblast and osteoclast. Now with the aging, after you reach the age of 70-75, our osteoblasts, as they become aged, they cannot synthesize or lay down the bone as effectively as they were doing at the early age. So if you think that a 7-year-old kid, the osteoblasts are synthesizing, laying down the bone much more effectively compared to a 77-year-old elderly person. So when you acquire that age, that elderly age after 75 typically, what is going to happen that your osteoclast, they are still going to erode your bone, eat your bone, but osteoblast, due to the aging effect, they cannot synthesize the bone, repair the bone as effectively, and that leads to reduced bone mass. We call it senile osteoporosis. This is another version of osteoporosis, primary osteoporosis, like postmenopausal osteoporosis. Then there are secondary osteoporosis also. Secondary osteoporosis means the osteoporosis is occurring due to other causes, like it could be due to some endocrine disorder like Cushing syndrome. It could be due to hyperparathyroidism, hyperthyroidism. It could be due to certain drugs like corticosteroid commonly causes osteoporosis. So all these malabsorption disorders can cause osteoporosis, like celiac disease, Crohn's disease could also result in the osteoporosis. So these are the all causes of secondary osteoporosis. Now, to understand the concept of the osteoporosis, you need to understand a very important concept that is known as peak bone mass. What do you understand by peak bone mass? Before I explain the concept of peak bone mass, let me tell you a story or analogy, I would say. Usually, the working class people, we have a tendency to save the money till our retirement age. We try to save the money when we are working, and usually we spend that money which we have saved during after post-retirement phase. Similarly, the body, our human body, tries to save the bone mass till the age of 30, and whatever amount of bone mass they have saved till age 30, that gets progressively used for the rest of our life. So we acquire our peak bone mass at the age of 30. Now, particularly in females, the peak bone mass which is acquired, that is less compared to an average male. And moreover, when the females they hit the menopause, the protective effect of estrogen also goes away, and more osteoclasts get activated through a cytokine mediated pathways, and more amount of bone gets lost by those osteoclastic activation. So that's why females typically after the menopause they have osteoporosis at much earlier age compared to males actually, because firstly they have less savings in their bank account, less savings of peak bone mass in their bank account or bone account, and when they hit the menopause, the protective effect they were getting till before the menopause, that goes away, and that actually makes them vulnerable for the development of the osteoporosis, and that's why you usually get postmenopausal osteoporosis. It's a major problem actually, postmenopausal osteoporosis. And osteoporosis is something we usually diagnose with a DEXA scan, dual energy X-ray absorptiometry scan, but that I'm going to discuss in the coming session. Thank you very much.